specialist team.
Started again. Sorry.
No, that's not a worry at all.
I won't be able to introduce everybody to you, but I'll introduce Steve Gord, who's our head of postgrad ICT courses, and Kieran Jamison, who is head of our Master of Cyber Analytics, or will be when we finally get it developed, and Sriman Grandy, who's one of our discipline leaders. Perfect. And we have there Cairns, Bundaberg, and Melbourne representatives.
Fantastic. So you are very widespread. I love it. Well, also to that point, and I think a few of you has just jumped on, I'm happy to leave my email address so as we can follow up with any questions and answers that aren't completed today in today's session. But we'd really like to increase the engagement with your institution and just also be a sounding board, you know, particularly around the cybersecurity. We do have a specialist within cyber as well. So we are able to keep these sessions going. It doesn't just have to be isolated to this one session, which I think, you know, would be beneficial to all involved. And also having Neri jump on from our early careers, because there's a lot sort of happening within our intern program. And oh, there you go. She's there. Fantastic. Luckily we're saying wonderful things about her. So it is 1 o'clock. When did you want to give people maybe another minute or two?
I think so, yes, because they're coming in thick and fast at the moment. So yes.
Fantastic. Awesome. Bear with me 1 sec.
Sure. Just give them another minute because I am recording it. So
no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
The more the merrier.
Perhaps you could do the introduction to Neri and Natasha.
Natasha, while we're waiting, yeah, absolutely. Sure. So Natasha, as I mentioned, is our machine learning specialist. So she's a solutions architect here within AWS. So she's based in Sydney and she helps organizations navigate the machine learning journey. So supporting them from framing the machine learning problem into deploying production, and while making sure the best architecture practices are in place to ensure their success. So obviously drawing on her experiences from previous roles within AI and ML in a consulting firm, and designing and implementing machine learning projects in a wide range of industries, from telecoms to retail, governments and healthcare. So Natasha really aims to support organizations build scalable, reliable, secure and cost-effective machine learning solutions. And Natasha works with organizations on problems around computer vision, natural language processing, ML ops, and among many others. So that's a little bit about Natasha. So I'll jump to Nari, just so as we've got all of the introductions out of the way. So as I mentioned, Nari looks after the Australia, New Zealand Early Careers programs here within Amazon AWS. And so, as you know, it's the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform. So we have millions of customers, the fastest growing startups, large enterprises, leading from government agencies all the way down to, you know, your small little startups, which is really quite exciting. So Nari's going to talk to us today about the internship and graduate program. So I don't want to dive too deeply into that and steal her thunder, but as I said, we will have questions and answers at the end of this for both Natasha and also Nari, which is really exciting. And I'm very thankful that they could find time to accommodate us today at such short notice, but we are really excited to present to you all. So Natasha, are you ready?
Yes, I can get started.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right, so let me share my screen and let's see what have you. Right. Okay, can you see my screen? Yes, very good. All right, so as Jem introduced me, I am a machine learning specialist here at AWS, and I'm working specifically with public sector customers. So helping government agencies and helping any customer that has to do with public sector get started on their machine learning journey, but also helping them brainstorming use cases or making sure that they're building secure and safe solutions on the cloud. So I just started by putting this image here. As you can see, it's probably some of you will recognize that. It's an image that's been taken quite recently by the rover that's currently on Mars that was sent by the NASA. And it's actually, this image has been brought back by some AWS technology. So the communication between the rover and Earth is being done through AWS, which I think is quite cool. And all of the science and all of the insights that are being generated and that are made and the decisions that are made for the rover are actually done on the AWS cloud. So it's the first spatial mission that is using the public cloud, which I think is quite cool. So I always start with this, especially recently because it's such a new topic. So today I wanted to talk about a few things. So I will only speak for 30 minutes, which is not a lot of time, but I'll give you a brief overview of the current state of AI and machine learning, and more specifically machine learning on AWS. And I'll do a bit of a demo, 10 to 15 minutes demo of a new product that we released a few months ago that is called Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler. And then Neri will take over, and then we'll have some questions towards the end of it. So that's the idea for today. So because I know we have such a wide audience today, I just wanted to start with some level settings in terms of the different terms that we're using when we talk about AI and machine learning. That will be very brief. So first of all, when we talk about AI, we are really mentioning any sort of techniques that mimics the human intelligence. And that's pretty broad, right? That encompasses many things. Now, today, when we talk about AI, we mostly talk about machine learning, which is a subset of AI that actually uses data and searches for pattern in that data. And it's able to build logic itself without having explicitly programmed logic. And finally, another subset of machine learning that we talk a lot also today is deep learning, which is this type of machine learning that is also looking for patterns in data, but the way it's doing it is using this neural network. So this sort of software that are built very much like the brain works. So that's a very high level intro of what AI is and what we'll talk about today. So we know that machine learning went from this very aspirational technology to something that is actually pretty mainstream today. And for a long time, we know that this technology was reserved to a few researchers, or it was reserved to the big technology companies like Facebook or like Amazon, even or Google. But things began to change when, first of all, data became more available, when internet started to grow, and when cloud computing entered the mainstream as well. So compute power became more available, data became more available, and quite literally today, machine learning is making its impacts across every industry, not only in the commercial side of things, but also in public sector, which is quite interesting. And it's moving from something that was quite peripheral. So company used to do AI in the labs, for example, or as a research topic, but now it's really becoming this core part of the organization that is helping them be more efficient. So Amazon is an example of a company that's been doing machine learning for a very long time. We started doing machine learning more than 20 years ago across a wide number of areas. So we started with personalization, for example, in our retail website. So I'm sure most of you know this Amazon.com website where we sell products. So some of the first things that we started to do was personalization, for example, but we also needed, as you can imagine with the scale that we're dealing with, we also did things like optimizing the supply chain or forecasting for the supply chain. And we started that very, very early on. So we used those traditional machine learning techniques at the time, like those statistical machine learning systems And over the years, we started implementing and building those more complex systems using some of the more recent technologies. So things like deep learning, for example, that I introduced earlier. And we did that not only on the retailer side, but then we also ported all of those different algorithms and things to, for example, the different subsidiaries that we have. So that could be, for example, Amazon Prime, where we recommend movies, for example. And not only that, but we also tried all sorts of different machine learning. So for example, we built natural language processing capabilities with Alexa, or we build things that are quite innovative, like the autonomous flights for the drones, which is quite cool. And this doing machine learning, doing so much machine learning was a big culture change for us, but it's actually something that we think almost every organization can do. Actually, not almost, we really think every organization can do it. There is some common challenges to doing AI today. Some of these challenges are really about, first of all, the data. We know that there is still a lot of organizations that have those data silos in place, and it makes it really hard to build this very smart predictions, these very smart insights, because it's really hard to get the data in one place. So having a good data strategy is really, really important. The second one is the skill gap. So we see a lot of people ramping up with data science skills and machine learning skills today, but there's still a bit of a gap from those people to get some experiences in the workplace. And it's definitely getting better, but it's still something that organizations are struggling with. And then there is another challenge, which is around the business use cases. It can be hard for companies to actually think about what type of ML, what type of machine learning can help them solve specific business use cases. And finally, once you've done all of that, you have the right skills, you have the data in place, and you have a good business case, you still need to spend some time building a machine learning model. And this is still, even if you have all of these things in place, it's still a complex and iterative process. And so what we do at AWS is take this rich experience from doing machine learning for about 20 years at Amazon and at AWS. We take all of this experience, and what we try to do is simplify machine learning for every data scientist and every researcher and every developer. So we really try to make it accessible for everyone by using our expertise. That's our mission. To do that, we have a technology stack that we give everyone access to. So this is our machine learning technology stack. As you can see, there is 3 different levels. So the level at the top that you see is our AI services. So those are the services that are really easy to integrate within an application because they don't require any data science experience. You don't need to know how to build a model. You don't need to know anything about machine learning. Basically, all you have to do is send some data to an API, and you're going to get some insights out of it. Now, as you can see, there is lots of them, lots of those services. And we try to cover all of the most common business need. So that's, for example, something that comes up quite often is use cases around vision. So we have a service that's called recognition. If you send some images to recognition, then it's going to give you some insights in terms of what's in the image. So that could be what type of object, if there is a person, if that person is smiling, these sort of things. So that's an example for images. But then, as you can see, we cover all sorts of things. So that can be text, but that can also be things that are very specific to certain domains. So things like healthcare, we have services that are very that are tuned for specific domains. So Comprehend Medical, for example, is able to process medical text and extract insights, medical insights from this text, which is really, really cool. So those are the high-level AI services covering the most common business needs. Then we often see organizations and people wanting to do a bit more. They want to build their own custom machine learning model because they have this specific problem that they're trying to solve, and they know a type of machine learning model, for example, that's going to work very well. Well, that's when you start going down to a level in the stack. So at the second level here, you can see that you have Amazon SageMaker. And Amazon SageMaker is this product that enables data scientists and enables researchers to do machine learning in a simplified way. So what it does is simplify machine learning for you. So as you can see, it covers the end-to-end machine learning workflow. So when you do machine learning, you need to start with preparing the data, and then you build a model, you train a model, then you're going to deploy that model. So SageMaker is really covering all those different places, from the labeling of the data, which is one of the first steps, to having a model that is deployed in production, making sure that this model is monitored, and making sure that you have this automation, this end-to-end automation for your model. So that's really what SageMaker is about. And a lot of it has to do with managing the infrastructure for you, so you can focus on building your machine learning model. At the last layer of the stack, we have the machine learning frameworks and infrastructure. And so that's where we give you access to servers, which we call instances on AWS. And with the servers, you have access to things like GPU that you need to build big machine learning models. You have access to all those common frameworks that all the data scientists use, so things like TensorFlow, scikit-learn, PyTorch, etc. And yeah, we give you access to dedicated infrastructure as well that is very much targeted for machine learning. So things like chips that are really, really effective for machine learning inference, for example, and really, really cheap, these sort of things. So that's the last layer of the stack. So if I give you an example of some of the services that are at the high level, one of the things that we released recently, a few months ago, was the industrial AI use cases. So services. So as you can see here, we released a few AI services that are dedicated to asset-intensive industry, we say. So that's, for example, if I give you the example of Amazon Lookout for equipment, it's a service that is dedicated to detecting abnormal things, anything that can happen that's abnormal on sensor data. So yeah, we have a bunch of those. I'm not going to go into detail. That's just to give you an idea of what's out there today. And then we have SageMaker, and that's the one that I would like to give a demo of, because I think it's quite cool, especially some of the latest things that we built. So as part of Amazon SageMaker, we actually released something that's called Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler, which is a visual tool that can help you prepare the data for machine learning. And on top of that, it can help you build a very quick model to figure out if what you're going to try to build with machine learning is actually going to work. So that's what I would like to show you today in the console. So let me jump over to that. Actually, if I just switch a few slides, just going to skip over that. If there is any question, you can drop them in the chat window in the meantime, and I'll address them at the end. So SageMaker Data Wrangler. So we know that 80% of the time today to do machine learning is spent doing data preparation, which is a massive amount of time, as you can imagine. And so we decided to release a tool that could actually help you with that. So with this SageMaker Data Wrangler, you can do a few things. First of all, you can go and select and query data anywhere on AWS in a visual way. So it's very easy. We have a number of built-in transformation, which are the most common transformation that happen when you're trying to prepare data for machine learning. I think we have more than 300 data transformations that are available. But then something that are really, really cool, which is we give you access to some data visualization within Data Wrangler. So in just a few clicks, you can very easily see what your data looks like and draw a few histograms. You can also build a quick machine learning model to figure out if your model is going to actually work, and if you should invest more time building a more complex model. And we also have a whole lot of things in there, things around bias detection and all of those things. So the example that I'm going to show you today is going to be about predicting which passengers from the Titanic shipwreck are going to die or not. So we're going to use the historical information from the Titanic shipwreck. And so in this data, there is information like the gender of the person, there is a name, there is a ticket class, as you can see here, there is a sex, etc. And we have a variable if they survived or not. So that's the one that we're going to try and predict. So let me jump over to the console. So for those of you who haven't seen Amazon SageMaker before, this is it. So I'm actually going to start. For those of you who haven't used AWS, the first time you're going to log in AWS, this is the console. This is what that's going to look like. If you want to navigate to Amazon SageMaker, you can just type at the top of the search bar, I want to see Amazon SageMaker. And I'm going to click on that. And once you've navigated there, it's really easy to do anything. So you have access to a number of things, like, for example, you have notebooks or you have SageMaker Studio, which is a place where you can write your code and you can write your experiments. There is a number of free tier usage. So if ever you have your own account, you can have access to free tier usage for SageMaker and the notebooks if you wanted to try it or play around with it. So here I'm going to open SageMaker Studio. And once I've opened it, it's actually already opened there. This is what it looks like. So we have a UI. This is Jupyter Lab based for those of you who know Jupyter Lab. But in this case, I'm going to show you this data wrangler. So this is how you access data wrangler. You have it at the bottom here, at the bottom of the menu. And you can select data wrangler here in the list. Once you selected that, you can create a new flow, which is what we're going to do here. And we're going to go and get that data from Amazon S3, which is a place where we store data. And we have that historical data from the Titanic shipwreck. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to look for my Titanic bucket. Which is here. So I have a few CSV files. So if I click here, I can have some visualization of what's in there, some quick visualization here, some preview at the bottom. So as you can see, there is a passenger ID, there is the variable that we're going to try to predict if the passenger survived or not. There is the class, which is the ticket class that they were in, their names, etc. And so here I can see where this file is located. I can see that it's a CSV file, and I can decide to import it into Data Wrangler. So I'm just going to click here. What that's going to do is that's going to import this file into Data Wrangler. Now that this file is imported, I can see that it started creating this flow. So for this data transformation, I'm going to create a flow where I'm getting the data from a specific place, and then I'm applying my transformation. So this is a logical flow of things that are happening. So once I've imported my data, first thing that it does is assign some data type. And so I can go and have a look at making sure that each of the types that were assigned in this CSV file were the right ones. So here, I'm going to have a look. So I can see that, for example, survived is a number, so that's all good. The name is a string, so that's all good. And they all seem to be correct. So I'm happy with that, so I'm not going to change it. So the first step is correct. It did get my data correctly. So now I can start applying some data transformation. So to do that, I can click this little plus sign, and I can do add transformation. And let's say I want to drop, so as you can see, there is lots of categories here. So let's say I want to drop a column, for example. I think, for example, to be able to predict if a passenger survived or not, I don't want to use the name of the person because I want a predictor that's going to be generic, so I don't want to use the name of the person. So I want to drop this column, this name column. That's not going to help me. So I can go into here, I can go into manage column, and I can select the column that I want to drop. That's going to be the name. I can click on preview. That's going to remove that column. If I'm happy with that, I can click on add up. And if I go back to my data flow, you can see that it added a new step, which is this drop column step. Now, for those of you who have done machine learning before, you can see that, for example, you have access to things like encoding columns. So you can choose to do some one-hot encoding of a specific column, and it's just a few clicks. It's quite easy. So you have all of those common transformations that you do for machine learning. But then you also have things like being able to apply custom transform, and you can decide here to type code. So if you're familiar with some transformation that you want to do with some piece of code, you can do that here as well. So it's pretty modular. So that's some of the things that are possible with Data Wrangler. And I say, I have my data. I'm happy with the way it is. What I want to do is actually try very quickly to predict if the passengers to create a model that's going to predict if the passenger survived or not, because I just want to see if it's going to work or not. I just want to have this very quick insights if that's going to work. So what I can do is I can click on this little plus sign again. I can go into add analysis. And here I can select quick model. Let's call it survived predictor. Oops. Survived predictor. And as the label that we're trying to predict, I'm just going to select survive. And then I can click on preview. A bit more space. I can click on preview, and that's training a model in the backend. And as you can see, really, really quickly, I think it took maybe 5 seconds, maybe a bit less than that. I'm getting a result of this model train, and I can see that it reached 75% F1 score for that specific model, which is a specific matrix, machine learning matrix that we're trying to reach. So seems to work, which is pretty cool. I can see that I also have a feature importance graph. So what is it? What is it? It's a graph that is going to tell me for each column in this data set, which column was the strongest predictor for this specific survival, survived or not. And here you can see that the sex was actually the strongest predictor, which sort of makes sense when you think about what happened during the Titanic shipwreck, which is that they try to save all the females more than the males. So yeah, that's how you create a very quick model within Data Wrangler. And so if you're happy with that, you can decide to export your data transformation, and you can maybe try a different type of model, or you can build your own model and then do this iteration of training and finding a solution for your specific problem. Another thing that I can very quickly show you is this histogram. So say I want to draw how many female versus male survived during the shipwreck. So let's just try to draw that very quickly. Male versus female. Up. So on the x-axis, I'm going to choose the, let's say the age. We're going to have this by the age. We're going to color by the text. And as a facet, we're going to choose if they survived or not. And so if I draw that here, so as you can see in 2 seconds, I have this graph. And I have the passenger that didn't survive here on this side, and the passenger that survived on this side. And as you can see, males are in orange. So most of the men on this side died. And as you can see, there is more female on the right side that survived. So that's how you can do very quick models or very quick diagrams on Data Wrangler. And so if I come back to my presentation, that's sort of the demo for Data Wrangler. If you want to get started today with machine learning on AWS, we do have a few things that we give you access to. So we have a number of training online that are accessible for free. So you can have access to that. And then as solution architects, so people like myself, we're very happy to help you with proof of concepts. We also have people that can help you build solution production workloads on AWS. So lots of different things. And we also give you access to a number of hands-on training and things like Deep Racer. I think Jem was talking about that a bit earlier. But we give you access to sort of this hands-on training, and those they are sort of toys in some way, but they're educational toys that you can play with to learn AI. So pretty cool. And we also have this certification and training online that you have access to. So that's all I wanted to cover. And I'm going to hand over to, I forgot the name of the next person. Jem, I'm going to hand back over to you. Sorry.
No, thank you so much, Natasha. I even learned some really cool things. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't on the Titanic, let's be honest, but thank you for that. There are a few questions, so I might hold the questions to the end. I'll Slack them to you now, Natasha, so you can answer those at the end as well. But now we have Nari, who's jumping on to talk about our early careers program. Are you ready? You have the mic.
Thank you, and thanks, Natasha. That was very informative. So hi, everyone. My name's Nari Kim, and I lead our ANZ programs for early careers. So for us, early careers, we typically identify as interns and graduates. With graduates, normally straight out of undergrad. However, we do consider people sort of within the 3 years of graduating. If they're applying for a grad program, we would consider them as graduates as well. And so it is still quite new for us for AWS and Amazon in terms of our intern and grad programs. We haven't been in the market and doing a lot of early careers things until recently. I'd say in the last couple of years, we've really focused a lot more on early careers. But before then, we were growing exponentially. And so we were looking at a lot of industry hires. So I used to work in our talent acquisition team for AWS. And then for the past couple of years, I've moved over to focus on building out our early careers programs. So I'll just share my screen. All right. Can you guys see my screen? All right, excellent. If I'm looking sort of like my eyes are going that way, it's just because I have the split screen and the camera is here. So I'm not looking somewhere else, but I guess to get started. So at AWS, we've sort of broken it up into 2 different streams. So we have what we call our next gen internship program, and then also which I'll go into and then talk about the other one as well. So next gen for us is our non-technical intern and graduate stream. So I get a lot of questions, people saying, oh, I don't come from an IT background, or I didn't do computer science, could I work at Amazon? And the answer is absolutely. Technical roles within our software development team, what we refer to as SDE, software development engineer, those are your sort of very technical roles. But aside from that, we have a lot of non-technical roles that I guess people don't necessarily associate with AWS, but roles within sales, business development, customer solutions management, and within our partner channel and alliances team as well. So people from multiple different backgrounds, whether it's a Bachelor of Commerce, communications, we see a lot of people coming from even within different health sciences as well. So yeah, Next Gen was created to sort of combine a lot of our non-technical roles and have people join as an intern and then move on to our graduate track for a lot of these non-technical roles. It is still a fairly new program. We only just piloted and launched it in 2019 summer. And so we've just finished up our second cohort. and we will start recruiting for this year's summer intern cohort. Actually, the applications are open now, but yeah, so the next cohort will start this summer, so December 2021, and goes through until February. So bit of an overview of our Next Gen intern program. It's a 3-month full-time summer internship. So generally students who are in their penultimate year would be eligible to apply for that. If you are in not in your second last year, maybe your first or second year of a 4-year course, there are cases where you could be eligible. It's just that generally, because we look at giving out a grad offer for our interns for them to come back the year after, it works best when you're in your second last year. So we generally look at penultimate students from any different background, as long as you are interested in technology, in Amazon, in AWS, and you would like to further develop yourself within sales, within our partner teams. Sales strategy, operations, and enablement is another big team that we look into, and business development. And then within business development, we have multiple different verticals. So we have, AI, ML BD, we have digital innovation BD, cloud economics. I could go on forever, but generally speaking, we sort of group anything that is a non-sales role, but is also customer facing, would be considered BD. Sales strategy, operations, and enablement is a little bit more internal. So typically looking at people who are really curious about sales operations. So a lot of number crunching, a lot of our analysts start in sales ops, and you're essentially sort of making sure that the sales teams are on track to hit target. Partner, channel, and alliances. So AWS and Amazon, we have a lot of partner companies that we work with, and they could range anywhere from massive companies such as Accenture, Deloitte, all the way through to smaller sort of partners that you may not have heard of. And so our partner team we have partner development managers, partner success managers, who essentially manage that relationship with our partners, who are could be AWS resellers, or they could be consulting partners. Again, within partner, there you have multiple different streams. So we have technology partners, consulting partners, and so just depending on what your interests are, you would be sort of put into the different partner teams that we have. And then sales is pretty much at the forefront of our business. So sales, a lot of people, when we say tech sales, people sort of assume you have to be very technical. That's definitely not the case. I think technical skills is something that you can learn on the job, and it's definitely where we can provide a lot of training. With sales, I think what we look for is essentially it's an attitude and people who really want to develop their sales skills. But for us, and not just at Amazon, but within sales, what we always look for is that customer obsession mindset. And so, we're always looking to see how we can help our customers, not necessarily how much, AWS services we can sell, but, how can we help the customers do better? How can we help them grow? And so with that mindset is typically what we see in successful people coming out of sales. So once we have our summer internship, and so the internship, you will come in as a cohort alongside all the other interns that join us over the summer, and in multiple different teams and verticals. So once you get part of the internship cohort, we have a lot of other activities. We do a lot of challenges as well. Last year we ran the Deep Racer competition for our interns, and that was a lot of fun just to see everyone get really involved. And again, we had interns from our Amazon retail side join us for that as well, because all the training is provided. So you don't need to have the technical background to be able to compete. We also have global jam challenges where you are working or competing against other interns globally that are at Amazon. And so last year, I think Australia actually came second place in our global jam challenge. That was quite fun, but also a lot of different opportunities for you to speak to mentors, get leadership training from a lot of our senior managers. And so we built out a whole program to ensure people are actually, really understanding and learning what it's like to be an intern at Amazon, but then also the opportunity to just speak with multiple different people within the business. I arrange a session every week for our intern cohort where we have a different senior leader in the business come and speak to our interns, and the topics are so diverse. You know, we talk about diversity, machine learning, innovation is a pretty popular one as well. And so that sort of goes across the 3 months. We typically look at an internship as almost like a 3-month long interview, because at the end of the internship, we will then be looking at giving out a grad offer to those interns who were successful throughout the 3 months. And so you would then sort of carry on into our next gen graduate program, which is essentially about a year-long program for a fresh grad, where you will be provided with a lot of the coaching and training and mentoring for you to really develop and excel your career within AWS. If we look at some of the grad positions that we have offered this year, we demand generation sales. So that's sort of where you would start if you were interested in a career in tech sales. We also have innovation business development program manager, go-to-market BD associate, and also a general BD associate. These are just some of the roles that we had offered within our non-technical graduate tracks. And again, we are growing. So every year we are looking at other roles that we can add to our graduates and see what would be best for them. So in terms of the selection criteria, essentially we will post all our jobs on our you could see it on LinkedIn, but also if you just go on amazon.com/jobs, there is a tab just if you scroll down where it says opportunities for students. So anyone who's a current student, if you just click in there, it will give you a list of all our open positions for internships and graduate roles. But essentially for an internship, you will see the application. Depending on the role and the type of internship you're applying for, most of them will have some sort of written task attached to it. So with your resume, we ask that you include a 1-page written task. It's not quite a cover letter. You will have questions that you can choose from, and it's essentially to see your writing ability. And Amazon, writing is probably the #1 thing that we do. Everything is done in a document. We don't use PowerPoint slides internally. And so we always check to see that people are comfortable with writing, because that will happen, you know, every month. It's a new paper you have to work on, every promotion doc. Everything is done in a narrative format. And if all goes well in the first resume screening, we would then invite you to have an initial phone interview, so which we refer to as a phone screen, which is done most of the time by recruiters or myself or some of the hiring managers. And the first initial interview is just generally making sure, you know, you're eligible for the internship, and then we will sort of go through your background, what it is that you're interested in, what excites you, how much you really understand about Amazon and AWS. So that goes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then if all goes well there, we would invite you to participate in the loop interviews. And so this is for intern and grad positions, but it's also very similar to our industry hiring process. So we have what we call a loop interview, where you will essentially have multiple interviews one-on-one, but ideally on the same day. So for an internship, we look at about 4 interviews as part of the loop, and that may include a presentation to be done as well. Some, again, depending on the role and the type of internship or graduate program you're applying for, some will have a presentation, some will have more of a technical assessment, which may be like a whiteboarding session or something like that. So some sort of assessment that we generally see in that loop interview. And then if all goes well in the loop, we would then proceed to offer. The loop interview, though, I get a lot of questions around, you know, how technical is it, or what will they be testing me on? It's definitely not a technical interview or a functional interview. It's a lot more around our leadership principles. So all of our interviews, especially in the loop process, is behavioral style questions based on our Amazon 14 leadership principles. And it's essentially for us to determine functional and cultural fit within Amazon. And again, you'll hear these Amazon leadership principles being thrown around all the time. You know, multiple times a day. And so for us, it is very, very important for anyone who is interested in applying for any type of role at Amazon to be very familiar with the leadership principles, because it will just come up over and over again. But yeah, so if all goes well there, then we would start the internship cohort in December all the way through till February. And then you'd go back to school once that's done. So that's a bit on our non-technical internship stream. And so if we look over at TechU, so TechU was actually developed out of Seattle. It's a global graduate program that we have, and now we have just launched it as well within the APAC region, and it's specifically within ANZ as well. So TechU is essentially a graduate program for anyone who is interested in becoming a solutions architect, a technical trainer, or a role within our professional services team. And I haven't updated this, but also our technical account managers. So this is more of a technical graduate program that we have, where you can essentially expect 6 months on the job training for the first 6 months. So a lot of it is, it's not necessarily classroom based. There is elements of that, but you're also working quite closely within the team that you will go into after 6 months. So the first 6 months, you will essentially be given all the training that you need. We do it in about 2-week sprints, and then have a deliverable almost every 2 weeks just to test everything that you have been learning. And so the training and the material that is taught is the same regardless of the different roles that you're going into. However, you do determine which pathway you are wanting to go into from the beginning. So for example, if you know you really want to become a solutions architect, then you would join TechU and do the same training as someone going into professional services. But after the 6 months, you would then go into those different teams. And so everyone has the same sort of foundation first, and then you sort of develop on that after the 6 months. So TechU used to be in Singapore for APAC. And so in that photo previously, there are people from ANZ in there, but everyone was based out of Singapore. So we used to send everyone to Singapore for 6 months. Everything was paid for, accommodation, living expenses, and then COVID hit. So we have switched to virtual now, but later this year, we will be running this out of Sydney for our Australia cohort. So we will now be running TechU out of Sydney. And then yeah, if people are coming from Melbourne, Brisbane, etc., you would be living in Sydney for the first 6 months, and then going back to the different states. So that's sort of how TechU is arranged at the moment. But yeah, just to give you, I guess, a little bit more background, it is sort of over 22 weeks, 6 months, in a stimulated manner where you will really develop your core technical and professional skills. And it's facilitated by our training and certification team. So we have specific tech trainers who go through the content and help you deliver on that, as well as a lot of sessions with various AWS experts and subject matter experts as well. And then you'll sort of be expected to learn by applying your skills to a simulated customer scenario based on your experience from within the field. So there's a lot of like role playing involved as well. So to get you really ready to be able to comfortably go out and speak in front of customers. So that's essentially what the approach is for TechU. And then, yeah, after TechU, depending on the business needs of your team, you would be going into the different roles. So again, solutions architect, professional services. If you wanted to maybe look at a career in tech training, this is also the grad program that would be best for you. And then also our technical account managers as well would start off in TechU. So it's a really good starting point for anyone who is interested in sort of really being more customer centric, but from a technical standpoint. So for our TechU application process, you can also, we don't have a TechU internship, but we do have internships within professional services, solutions architect, not so much in tech training and technical account management yet, but definitely if you were, really wanted to become an AI, ML, SA, you would want to start in doing an SA internship, and again, going onto our amazon.com/jobs page, you will be able to search for a lot of these roles and see what's open. We typically open our internship applications around March, April, and then go through the interview process all the way through to about June, July is when we get offers out for a December start. For a graduate program, we typically open our application. It's a bit hard to say because we have a lot of different intakes depending on the role. So it's sort of really good to just keep checking. TechU, we have 2 cohorts a year. So we have one in March and one in September. And so we would start the recruiting around August or so for the March cohort. And then for September, we'd actually probably start around now. So April, May for the September cohort as well. And those are for people who are just applying for a graduate role within TechU without doing an internship. If you've done an internship with us, then we would look at an intern conversion in February and get those offers out almost a year in advance. So it's a very similar interview process. You would have your online application, the initial phone screening, the loop interviews, and then generally with technical roles, it's not necessarily a presentation, but more a whiteboarding session. So as part of one of the interviews, you would probably be speaking with a solutions architect or someone in professional services who they might present you with a problem and ask you to whiteboard it. So that's typically what it would look like. So a lot of our interview processes are quite similar regardless of the role. Even for an SDE role, again, the SDE role, you would have a lot more technical whiteboarding or questions to answer there, but generally the process is very similar. But yeah, I will now open it up to any questions. And I've just got my email here if anyone wanted to also reach out, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email. More than happy to chat and give some more insight if anyone had any further questions.
Thank you so much for that. I've also in the follow-up email, we will be supplying both your email and also my email. There was just one quick question for you. I have slacked it to you, Nari, so you can have a look at that, but it's in the chat and it was just a question around network engineer. I believe that's what it was, if my memory serves me correct.
What is the role of a network engineer or network administrator in ML? How the individual network engineer can be of help in machine learning? I, to be completely honest, would not be the best person to answer this question. I'm not an expert on the network engineering side. My sort of background is more focused on non-technical recruiting. So yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that. But if you want to leave an email, I can definitely get the answer to that question and let you know.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then Natasha, I've slacked you quite a few questions that have been coming from the chat. So if there's any, I mean, I'm just cognizant of time. We've got 8 minutes left and I know that you're probably all very busy bees. But if you can answer a few questions in our 8 minutes, that would be great. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Jem. So there was questions about credits and about the cost or how to get access to SageMaker. So when you set up an account with your own credit card, so you set up your own personal account, you have 2 months of free tier usage of Amazon SageMaker notebooks. And that's about 250 hours of notebook usage, which is quite a lot. If you pass this usage and you want to keep using SageMaker as an academic, so as someone that's working for the university, for example, you probably need to talk to Jem and your IT department to figure this out. And that's probably the best answer that I can give you. There might be some agreements or there might be some solutions that are ready for you to use within your organization. There was some other questions about the training. So we have a very good page. I'll paste a link in the chat window. If you want to get started and learn or are sort of looking for a training path to learn machine learning. So I'll just paste that in the chat. In this page, you can find different paths for each level that have different training courses. Most of them are free. So you have a lot of training on AWS training that are free, that will teach you the skills for data science, and that will also teach you the platform. Now, if you're looking at understanding a little bit more about SageMaker and diving into the platform and understanding the capability, there is this very good video series here. I'll paste it here. This is a SageMaker deep dive video series, and it sort of explains everything, how everything works. So I know you had some specific questions around how can I take a Python script and how can I do hyperparameter training, for example. So all the things would be explained in these videos, and we're running out of time. I would definitely want to have time to explain all that. Just know that there is everything in terms of if you want to do hyperparameter training, for example, but also things like, for example, being able to do experiment tracking, being able to do massive training job and being able to parallelize the data for those training jobs, being able to parallelize your models, deploying your model easily, doing CI/CD for machine learning. We have all sorts of capability within SageMaker. It's a massive product. So it's really about, yeah, if you start there with these videos, and then you can sort of dive where you need to. And the other thing that I wanted to give you, the other resource that I think is quite interesting, is this GitHub repo here. So that's the last thing that I will post. You have a number of examples. I think there is over 200 examples of using SageMaker. So that's using SageMaker with TensorFlow, with PyTorch, doing reinforcement learning, doing hyperparameter training, almost everything that you can think of, you have examples of that. So that teaches you how to use the SageMaker SDK to do all of the things. So that's for the resources. And let me have a look at the questions again. Okay, there was a question about I mentioned that one of the challenges is the skill gap. So what do I think is the most important skills for uni to bridge that gap at each level of the stack? So what students should study to be able to use the services of SageMaker? So I think there is a few things here. First of all, there is a skill gap in terms of people that go really, really deep into, let's say, deep learning or a specific area of machine learning. So people that are really, really good with the mathematics and understanding exactly what's happening. But that's not it. That's not your only path. So you don't need to be that person that goes really, really deep and that does very complex things. There is also, I think, a massive skill gap in terms of the people that can understand the business and understand where are the problems with the business and finding those machine learning solutions that can solve those problems. So people, I see lots of people that are really, really good. They're really big focused, technically focused, really, really good at that, but they sort of don't have the ability to take a step back and look around and look at what can be fixed and how to fix it. And on the other side, you have the people that have a very business mind and they see all the problem, but they don't really understand exactly how and where to use machine learning. So they'll sort of shoot in the dark with wanting to do AI and ML. So having this ability to try and understand both things at the same time, I think is super useful. So if you can focus on both the things, then you'll be the king of whatever organization you're working for. And yeah, I think
Perfect.
that's, yeah.
I think
gonna be
that
it.
was one, Nari. I think there was one more question for you, which you highlighted.
Yeah, I did see a question about which cities we have interns within Australia. So at the moment, Sydney and Melbourne, Sydney probably has the most in terms of numbers, but we also have interns in Melbourne, in our Brisbane office as well. We also have a Perth office, and I believe Adelaide office has just opened as well. So we would look into that. Probably not this year for Adelaide, but yeah, definitely Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane. And also within New Zealand, we have 2 offices there, Auckland and Wellington, which we are looking into. So I wouldn't worry too much about, if you're not based in Sydney, that's definitely not an issue because we are always looking at where we can have interns. We also are looking at a hybrid internship model where we can have interns based remotely, or close enough to an office where you can go in, but not necessarily the whole time. So we are doing that in the States. And so we're looking at how that would work within Australia as well. I did see one last question from Ruben. As an intern, what tips would you have currently in Sydney, your first month of internship, and with reference to graduate program, if I complete an AWS course as a start, considering I don't have an IT background? Yeah, so with internships, I always say to my interns, the best thing you can do is just learn, just absorb everything. I think, you know, you're in a really fortunate position where you have gotten an internship, you have access to multiple different people, to platforms, to materials to learn. So just take in as much as you can. You know, don't be afraid to reach out to someone and just ask to have, like, you know, 15, 20-minute coffee and pick their brains and just learn more about them. Most people I found, especially in a workplace, they love to speak about themselves and what they're doing. And if you're showing a genuine interest, then people are more than happy to really speak to you and help you out. So don't be afraid. Bias for action is probably another one that I would say is very important for an intern, is just really being able to go out and get things done without having to wait and be told what to do. We always say at Amazon, it's better to just do something and then ask for forgiveness if it doesn't work out than to sit back and wait until you're given instructions, because it's very, very fast paced. It's very dynamic. No one's really sitting around waiting to give instructions. And so, just take things into control really and go for it. That really does help, I think. But also just, being professional in the workplace, and really make sure that you are reaching out to as many different people, because it's what you take away from it. Sorry, just the one last question. You're in Townsville campus. Can I do an internship? I think that would, again, depend on our hybrid model, depending on how far you would be from the closest office. But yeah, as we said, we are looking into hybrid models. So I wouldn't rule it out completely just because you are like much further away from the main office in the city. Again, these things are all like obstacles that we can overcome. We wouldn't rule out someone just because they're located further away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of information that we've all just received. I found it valuable, and I work at AWS, so I hope you all did too. Now, to that point, Marilyn, was there anything that you would like to say to close? As I said, I really appreciate the opportunity for us to present today. You can see that our team at AWS are exceptionally passionate, so still happy to answer any questions that you may have. Marilyn will circulate my email address, and then I can direct that through to Natasha and Nari. So please feel free to reach out. But over you, Marilyn.
Thank you very much, Jen. I'm really pleased, and just so pleased that so many people have turned up for this particular session, that all I have to say really is thank you to Natasha, Jem, and Nari. Sorry, I'm looking for you on the screen. For coming today, because I think what's going to have to happen is we'll have to set up some more sessions.
We would love to be a part of that. Absolutely. I would high five everyone if you were all in the room with me right now. So as I said, please keep those questions flowing. Happy to keep communication open. If there is any feedback for the session, once again, please feel free to distribute that. We are not precious. We're here to give you as much information as you can about AWS and our services and all of the awesome that you can create, because every day I come to work, and I'm going to sound like an absolute noob, but I come to work and I hear stories about some of the stuff that our researchers are creating, or the public sector organizations that we're working with, and I get goosebumps just because I know that we are changing lives. Like some of the projects that we're working on, and it's pretty cool. Needless to say, I love where I work and I feel exceptionally blessed. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you all today. And we'll be in touch. Shoot me through an email should you need. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.